A puppy clings to a vet's hand as he prepares the final injection, and what the vet discovers next shatters everything he thought he knew. This isn't just another late-night euthanasia. This is the moment when a young veterinarian, hardened by years of emotional detachment, comes face to face with a truth so devastating it could destroy his career. The puppy's desperate gesture, one small paw pressed into his palm, becomes the crack that brings down an entire wall of professional indifference. What could drive a 4-month-old puppy to such an act of trust in the face of death? And what dark pattern has this vet been unknowingly part of for 3 long years? The answer will force him to choose between his license and his soul. If you believe that one moment of courage can change everything, that sometimes the smallest victims hold the biggest truths, then subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell because stories like this, where compassion defeats cruelty and one person's choice to do the right thing saves innocent lives, are what we're all about here. Drop a like if you're ready to witness how one puppy's plea for mercy became a fight against systematic cruelty that reached into the darkest corners of power. Now let's dive into Dr. Michael Reach's story and discover what happens when a single paw changes 2 lives forever. The fluorescent lights of Riverside Animal Clinic hummed their familiar tune as Dr. Michael Reach scrubbed down the examination table at 10:15 on a Wednesday night. At 29, Michael had already perfected the art of emotional disconnection, a survival mechanism for a profession that demanded you end lives as often as you save them. His movements were efficient, methodical, designed to keep his mind occupied and his heart carefully locked away. It was easier that way. Safer. The clinic should have been closed 2 hours ago, but Michael had stayed late finishing paperwork, avoiding the silence of his apartment where ghosts of passion and purpose haunted empty rooms. He'd graduated top of his class at Cornell's veterinary school 5 years ago, burning with idealism and determination to make a difference. Now he was just tired. The sharp knock at the clinic side entrance cut through his thoughts. Michael glanced at the security monitor and recognized the animal control vehicle, its lights cutting red and blue streaks through the darkness. He buzzed them in, already pulling on a fresh pair of gloves. Officer Sarah Chen stood in the doorway, rain dripping from her uniform, cradling a small bundle wrapped in a standard AC blanket. Her expression was carefully neutral, the look people wore when delivering bad news they'd rather not be part of. Dr. Reach. Sorry for the late call. We've got an emergency euthanasia order. Michael's stomach tightened, but his face remained professionally blank. Bring them back to exam 2. Under the harsh examination lights, Chen unwrapped the blanket to reveal a German Shepherd/Rottweiler mix puppy, no more than 4 months old. The pup's coloring was striking, mostly black with tan markings on the paws and muzzle, the kind of dog that would have been stunning if given the chance to grow up. Instead, it cowered against the cold steel table, its small body trembling violently. "What's the story?" Michael asked, already pulling up the intake form on his tablet. Chen shifted uncomfortably. Owner is Vernon Thorne, the real estate developer? He's claiming the dog attacked his 7-year-old daughter unprovoked. Serious bite to the arm. He's demanding immediate euthanasia, won't consider any alternatives. Says the dog is irredeemably aggressive. Vernon Thorne. Michael knew the name. Everyone in Riverside did. The man owned half the commercial district and sat on the city council. His boutique breeding operation supplied premium guard dogs to wealthy clients across 3 states. Not the kind of person you wanted to cross. Did you witness the attack? Michael asked, making his voice deliberately flat. No. Family called 911, then demanded we collect the dog immediately. Mr. Thorne was very insistent about the timeline. Said he wants confirmation of euthanasia by midnight. Michael nodded, the familiar numbness settling over him like a protective coat. This was the job. Sometimes animals were dangerous. Sometimes the law required action. His feelings didn't matter. They never had. He prepared the injection with practiced efficiency. Pentobarbital sodium, the standard solution, peaceful and quick. The puppy watched him with dark, intelligent eyes that held too much awareness for something so young. Michael avoided that gaze, focusing instead on his instruments, his dosage calculations, the step-by-step protocol that kept emotion at bay. "You can wait outside," he told Chen. "I'll handle it from here." After she left, the exam room fell silent except for the puppy's rapid, frightened breathing and the quiet hum of medical equipment. Michael approached the table, syringe in hand, already mentally drafting the paperwork he'd need to file. The puppy didn't growl or snap. Instead, it pressed itself into the far corner of the table, making itself as small as possible, its body language screaming terror, not aggression. Michael reached out to secure the puppy's front leg for the injection. And then everything stopped. The puppy, slowly, deliberately, extended one small tan-tipped paw, not to scratch, not to defend, but to reach out and gently, trustingly, place it in the hollow of Michael's palm. The gesture was so impossibly gentle, so filled with desperate hope, that Michael's hand froze in midair. Then the puppy whimpered, not a growl of warning, but a sound so heartbreakingly soft it seemed to carry the weight of every unspoken plea for mercy ever made. A single tear traced a path down the puppy's dark muzzle, catching the fluorescent light. The syringe trembled in Michael's hand. For the first time in 3 years, the wall cracked. Michael looked, really looked at the animal before him. Not a case file. Not a procedure. But a living being begging for the one thing Michael had stopped believing mattered, a chance. His eyes dropped to the puppy's body, seeing what professional detachment had trained him to ignore. The aggressive dog was covered in defensive wounds, small, dark bruises along the ribs, older scars on the shoulders, the unmistakable pattern of systematic abuse. This wasn't an aggressive animal. This was a victim. "Jesus," Michael whispered, his voice cracking. The puppy's paw remained pressed against his palm, trembling but trusting. Waiting. Hoping. Michael set down the syringe with hands that shook. He pulled out his phone and began photographing every injury with methodical precision, his veterinary training taking over even as his heart hammered against his ribs. When Chen knocked on the door 15 minutes later, Michael called out without opening it. "I need more time. Full examination protocol before any final action. Tell Thorne it's clinic policy." "Doc," he specifically said. "I'm the veterinarian," Michael cut her off, surprised by the steel in his own voice. "And I determine medical protocol. He'll get his report in the morning." After Chen left, reluctantly but without further argument, Michael stood alone in the exam room with a puppy who'd just saved them both. The small dog watched him with those impossibly aware eyes, paw slowly withdrawing but body relaxing slightly, as if sensing the shift in Michael's intention. "Okay," Michael said softly, pulling over his examination equipment. "Okay. Let's see what really happened to you." As he began the careful, thorough examination that would uncover the truth, Michael realized something profound. He'd spent 3 years protecting himself from pain by numbing himself to everything, including his own purpose. This puppy, with one desperate gesture, had just reminded him what it meant to actually give a damn. Outside, rain continued to hammer against the windows. Inside, a young veterinarian began the process of becoming who he'd always meant to be. And somewhere in the darkness, Vernon Thorne's phone was ringing with news he wouldn't want to hear. Michael's examination revealed a catalog of horrors that turned his professional detachment into cold, focused rage. The bruising along the puppy's ribs wasn't from a single incident. It showed a pattern of repeated, systematic abuse spanning weeks, maybe months. Defensive wounds on the shoulders and neck told the story of an animal trying desperately to protect itself. The aggressive bite to Thorne's daughter? The puppy's mouth showed no recent trauma, no torn tissue consistent with a serious attack. If anything, the jaw showed older damage, as if someone had forced it open repeatedly. Michael documented everything with clinical precision, his camera capturing angles that would hold up in court. Each photograph was another nail in Vernon Thorne's carefully constructed lie. The puppy, he couldn't keep thinking of it as just the puppy, lay quietly through the examination, occasionally pressing that small paw against Michael's arm as if to remind him, "I'm trusting you. Please don't stop." At 11:30, Michael's phone exploded with incoming calls, all from the same number. He let them go to voicemail, listening as Thorne's voice escalated from measured authority to barely controlled fury. "Dr. Reach, this is Vernon Thorne. I'm calling regarding the euthanasia order for my animal. Officer Chen informed me there's been a delay. That's unacceptable. I expect confirmation within the hour." The next message, 10 minutes later, dropped all pretense of politeness. "Reach, I don't know what game you're playing, but I have friends on the city council and the veterinary licensing board. You're making a very expensive mistake. Call me back. Now." Michael saved every voicemail, adding them to his growing evidence file. Then he did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He called his mentor, Dr. Anya Sharma, who'd taught him veterinary forensics at Cornell. "Anya, it's Michael Reach. I need your help. I think I've been unknowingly euthanizing abuse victims for a man who's been systematically torturing animals and covering it up with false aggression claims." The silence on the other end lasted 3 heartbeats. "Tell me everything," Dr. Sharma said, her voice sharp with professional focus. "And Michael, don't let that animal out of your sight. If your suspicions are correct, someone's going to come for it." Michael looked down at the puppy, now sleeping fitfully on a pile of warm towels he'd arranged in the recovery kennel. The small body twitched with dreams, or nightmares. "I'm not letting anyone touch him," Michael said quietly. "Not anymore." Dr. Sharma arrived at the clinic by 2 a.m., her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes carrying the sharp focus of someone who'd spent 30 years testifying in animal cruelty cases. She examined the puppy with methodical precision while Michael pulled up his clinic's digital records, his fingers trembling slightly as he navigated through 3 years of files. "How long have you been treating Thorne's animals?" Sharma asked, not looking up from her examination. "Since I opened the clinic. He was one of my first major clients. Brought in dogs for routine care, vaccinations, health certificates for sales. I thought he was just a successful breeder. Pull every animal he's brought in. I want to see the full pattern." Michael's stomach turned to ice as the search results populated. 18 animals over 3 years. 18 different dogs, all young, all labeled aggressive or dangerous in the final notes. All euthanized. He'd performed 12 of the procedures himself. The other 6 had been handled by his predecessor, Dr. Ellen Morris, who'd retired and moved to Arizona. Sharma pulled up the files one by one, her expression darkening with each record. "Look at the notes. Minor bruising consistent with rough play. Scratches from kennel environment. Nervous disposition possibly genetic. Every single file shows signs of abuse that were documented but dismissed." "I didn't see it," Michael whispered, the guilt crushing his chest. I was so focused on just getting through the procedures, on not feeling anything, that I didn't see the pattern. He counted on that. Abusers like Thorne are experts at finding professionals who won't ask questions. Sharma straightened, her voice hardening. But now you're asking. Now you're seeing. What are you going to do about it? Michael looked at the sleeping puppy, then at the damning wall of evidence on his computer screen. 18 animals. 18 lives he could have saved if he'd just paid attention, if he'd cared enough to look beyond the paperwork. I'm going to stop him, Michael said, his voice steady despite the fear coiling in his gut. Whatever it takes. Sharma nodded grimly. Then we need to move fast. Men like Thorne don't accept defiance. He'll come for you and he'll come for that dog. We need to get both of you somewhere safe while we build the case. Outside, the rain had stopped. Dawn was still hours away. And Vernon Thorne's next call was already coming through. Michael didn't sleep. He couldn't. While Sharma made calls to her network of forensic veterinarians and animal welfare attorneys, Michael sat in his office staring at photographs of the puppy. Now officially named Whisk, short for whisked away to safety, as Sharma had grimly joked. The name stuck because it represented what Michael should have done for 18 other animals but hadn't. The weight of those failures pressed against his chest like a physical thing. 12 dogs he'd personally euthanized without questioning, without really examining, without caring enough to see past the convenient lie a powerful man had told him. He'd been so afraid of confrontation, so desperate to maintain his clinic's reputation and keep wealthy clients happy, that he'd become complicit in systematic cruelty. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake that will cost you everything. Last chance to fix this. Then another. I know where you live, Dr. Reach. I know your mortgage payment. I know your student loan debt. How long do you think your clinic survives when I'm done with you? Michael forwarded both messages to Sharma, then added them to the evidence folder that was growing by the hour. The threats should have terrified him, and they did. But they also crystallized something that had been forming since the moment Whisk placed that small paw in his hand. He was done being afraid. Done choosing comfort over conscience. Whisk stirred in his recovery kennel, whimpering softly. Michael moved to him immediately, kneeling beside the kennel door. The puppy's dark eyes opened, still wary but no longer filled with that soul-crushing terror. When Michael extended his hand, Whisk didn't flinch. Instead, he pressed his small body against the kennel door, seeking contact, seeking reassurance. I'm sorry, Michael whispered, tears finally breaking through the dam he'd built years ago. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. But I see it now. And I swear to you I'm going to make this right. Whisk's tail gave a tentative wag, the first sign of trust, the first glimpse of what this dog could become if given the chance to heal. Sharma appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. I've got us a safe house in the next county and a federal prosecutor who wants to hear everything. But Michael, once we do this, there's no going back. Thorne will use every resource he has to destroy you. Michael stood, his decision already made. Then let him try. The safe house plan lasted exactly 18 hours. Michael had arranged for Whisk's transport to a trusted rescue organization 3 states away, far enough that Thorne's influence couldn't reach, secure enough that the puppy would be protected while the legal case built momentum. Dr. Sharma had coordinated everything through her network, using encrypted communications and trusted intermediaries who'd handled high-profile cruelty cases before. On Thursday morning, Michael received official notification that his veterinary license had been temporarily suspended pending an investigation into gross professional misconduct and violation of public health protocols. The complaint, filed by Vernon Thorne through his attorney, cited Michael's refusal to follow a lawful euthanasia order and accused him of endangering public safety by harboring a dangerous animal. The suspension was a calculated move. Without his license, Michael had no legal authority to treat animals, no professional standing, and no credibility. Thorne was systematically dismantling Michael's life, and he was doing it through perfectly legal channels. "He's clearing the board," Sharma said grimly, reading the suspension notice. "This hearing is scheduled for next week, which means he's buying time to discredit you before you can present evidence." Michael felt the familiar panic rising, the fear of losing everything he'd worked for, the prospect of professional ruin, the crippling student debt that would crush him without his practice. Every instinct screamed at him to back down, apologize, return the dog, and salvage what remained of his career. Then Whisk padded over, his small body still moving gingerly from his injuries, and pressed against Michael's leg. The puppy looked up at him with absolute trust, the kind of faith that could only come from someone who'd been saved from the very edge of death. Michael made his choice. "We move the transport up. Tonight. Once Whisk is safe, Thorne can do whatever he wants to me, but he won't get to that dog." They loaded Whisk into a specialized transport crate at 9 p.m., Michael's personal vehicle serving as the transfer vehicle. The plan was simple. Drive 2 hours north to a neutral meeting point, hand off Whisk to the rescue coordinator, then return to face whatever legal nightmare Thorne had prepared. Michael pulled out of the clinic parking lot at 9:47 p.m., Whisk secured safely in the back, Dr. Sharma following in her own vehicle as backup. Neither of them noticed the black SUV that fell into position 3 cars behind them, its headlights cutting through the darkness like predatory eyes. Michael saw the headlights closing in his rearview mirror too late. The black SUV accelerated suddenly, cutting across 2 lanes of the mostly empty highway. A second vehicle appeared from nowhere, boxing him in from the right. His phone buzzed with Sharma's frantic call, but before he could answer, the SUV slammed into his rear quarter panel. The impact sent Michael's sedan spinning across the asphalt. He fought the wheel, trying to regain control, but the second vehicle clipped his front end at precisely the right angle to send him careening toward the concrete barrier. Time seemed to slow as Michael's training kicked in. He turned into the spin, pumped the brakes, tried desperately to protect the crate in the back seat where Whisk's terrified yelping cut through the screech of metal and rubber. The collision with the barrier was catastrophic. Michael's airbag deployed with explosive force, the impact driving the breath from his lungs and sending white-hot pain through his ribs and left shoulder. The windshield shattered into a spider web of cracks. Steam hissed from the destroyed engine. Through the ringing in his ears, Michael heard Whisk crying, high-pitched, panicked but alive. He forced his eyes open, fighting against the airbag, and twisted in his seat. The transport crate had held, secured by the seatbelt system, but it had shifted violently. Whisk was pressed against the far side, trembling but moving. "Good boy," Michael managed, tasting blood. "You're okay." "You're." Footsteps approached the driver's side. Through his shattered window, Michael saw 2 men in dark clothing. Not police. Not EMTs. Private security, the kind wealthy men hired when they needed problems solved quietly. One of them leaned down, his face professionally neutral. "Mr. Thorne would like his property returned, Dr. Reach. We can do this the easy way, or we can make it considerably more difficult." Michael's left arm hung useless, probably dislocated. His ribs screamed with every breath. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. But his right arm still worked, and the crate's door release was within reach. "Not a chance," Michael said, and pulled the release. Whisk exploded from the crate in a blur of black and tan, shooting through the narrow gap in the shattered passenger window before anyone could react. The puppy hit the ground running, disappearing into the wooded area beyond the highway shoulder. Behind them, Sharma's vehicle screeched to a stop, and Michael heard her voice shouting into her phone. "Officer down! Vehicular assault! I need police and ambulance at mile marker 47, northbound." The men in dark clothing exchanged glances, then melted back toward their vehicles. They'd failed to secure the asset, and now there were witnesses and sirens approaching. Michael slumped against his seat, relief and pain washing over him in equal measures. Whisk was free. That was all that mattered. Michael regained consciousness in the ambulance, his vision blurry and pain radiating through his entire left side. A paramedic leaned over him, checking vitals, while Dr. Sharma's face appeared in his peripheral vision, her expression tight with controlled fury. "Whisk," Michael managed through swollen lips. "Gone," Sharma said, and Michael's heart dropped until she continued. "I mean he ran. Into the woods. He's free, Michael. They didn't get him." The police report took 2 hours. Michael, drifting in and out of consciousness from the pain medication, gave his statement while Sharma corroborated everything and provided the names of witnesses who'd seen the deliberate collision. The investigating officer's expression grew darker with each detail, especially when Sharma mentioned Vernon Thorne's name. "That's a serious accusation, ma'am," the officer said carefully. "Mr. Thorne is a respected businessman." "Mr. Thorne," Sharma replied icily, "is a serial animal abuser who just attempted vehicular assault to recover evidence of his crimes. And if you check those SUV's registration, I guarantee they'll trace back to his security company." Michael was transported to Riverside General with a dislocated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and enough bruising to make him look like he'd gone 10 rounds with a heavyweight. The ER doctor, an older woman named Chen, examined him with practiced efficiency. "You're lucky," she said. "Another 6 inches on that impact angle and we'd be talking spinal damage." Lucky? Michael didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd been through a war and lost. His vehicle was totaled. His license was suspended. And Whisk, brave, terrified Whisk, was somewhere in the woods, alone and vulnerable. Sharma appeared in his room at 3 a.m., her eyes bright with exhaustion and triumph. "Michael, Whisk is safe. A local family found him hiding in their barn. I've got him in protective custody with animal control. The good kind, people I trust. He's scared but uninjured." Michael closed his eyes, relief flooding through him so intensely it hurt worse than his ribs. Thorne. His lawyers are already circling. But here's the thing, that collision? Highway Patrol found paint transfer and got the plate numbers. The vehicles are registered to Thorne's security services. He's exposed. "The hearing is in 3 days, Michael said. "I can barely walk." Sharma's smile was sharp as a scalpel. "Then we make him come to you. And Michael, I've been making calls. You're not facing this alone." The Veterinary Licensing Board hearing took place in a sterile conference room that smelled of old coffee and institutional anxiety. Michael arrived on crutches, his left arm in a sling, a vivid purple bruise covering half his face. He'd refused additional pain medication so his testimony would be clear, which meant every breath sent lightning through his ribs. Vernon Thorne sat across the room, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, flanked by 2 attorneys whose combined hourly rate probably exceeded Michael's annual income. Thorne's expression was one of wounded dignity, the successful businessman being persecuted by an unstable veterinarian who'd lost perspective. The board chairman, Dr. Harold Reeves, reviewed the complaint with bureaucratic precision. Dr. Reach, you're accused of refusing a lawful euthanasia order, violating public safety protocols, and maintaining custody of a documented dangerous animal in defiance of explicit instructions. How do you respond? Michael's attorney, provided by the State Veterinary Association, began to speak, but Michael raised his hand. I'd like to address the board directly. He pulled out a tablet despite the pain in his shoulder and connected it to the room's display system. Members of the board, I'm not contesting that I refused Mr. Thorne's order. I'm here to explain why that refusal was not only justified but legally required under veterinary ethics standards. The first image appeared on screen, Whisk's initial examination, showing the systematic bruising and defensive wounds. This is the aggressive animal I was ordered to euthanize. These injuries are consistent with prolonged physical abuse, not a single aggressive incident. Thorne's lead attorney stood. Objection. Dr. Reach is not a forensic specialist qualified to make such determinations. No, Sharma's voice cut through the room as she entered from the back door. But I am. Dr. Anya Sharma walked to the front, carrying a heavy accordion file. Behind her came two additional figures, a woman Michael didn't recognize and someone he did. Dr. Ellen Morris, his predecessor, who looked both aged and resolute. Members of the board, Sharma continued. I'm Dr. Anya Sharma, forensic veterinary specialist, Cornell University. I've examined this puppy and reviewed Dr. Reach's documentation. His assessment is correct. This animal was severely abused. She began placing documents on the table before the board members. But more importantly, this isn't an isolated incident. Mr. Thorne has a pattern spanning 3 years, 18 animals, and 2 veterinary practices. Thorne's face went white. Dr. Morris stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. I retired early because I couldn't live with what I'd done. Vernon Thorne brought me animals marked for euthanasia with the same story every time. Dangerous, aggressive, unsalvageable. I believed him because he was wealthy, influential, and I was afraid of the consequences of questioning him. 6 dogs died because I was a coward. The room fell silent. Sharma opened the accordion file with deliberate precision, spreading authenticated records across the conference table like a prosecutor laying out evidence of a crime. 18 animals over 36 months. Each one brought to a veterinarian by Mr. Thorne with claims of aggression. Each one showing documented signs of abuse that were noted but not reported. Each one euthanized within 24 hours of intake. She connected her own laptop to the display, and a spreadsheet appeared. Names, dates, veterinary notes, photographic evidence. Dr. Morris provided her complete records. Dr. Reach provided his. I've also obtained records from the Regional Animal Control Database. The pattern is irrefutable. Thorne's attorney was on his feet. This is outrageous speculation. My client runs a legitimate breeding operation. Occasionally, animals develop behavioral issues that. Behavioral issues don't cause systematic bruising. Sharma cut him off. They don't cause defensive bite patterns on an animal's own body. They don't explain why every single dog Mr. Thorne brought in showed signs of prolonged stress and physical trauma. The third woman stepped forward. Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Walsh. Mr. Chairman, I'm here representing the prosecutor's office. Based on Dr. Sharma's forensic analysis and the pattern of evidence, we're opening a criminal investigation into Mr. Thorne for animal cruelty, filing false reports, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We're also investigating Tuesday night's vehicular assault on Dr. Reach." Thorne stood abruptly, his composure finally cracking. "This is a witch hunt. That dog attacked my daughter. I have every right to." "Your daughter was never bitten," Sharma said coldly. "I pulled the hospital records this morning. No treatment for dog bite. No emergency room visit. The entire attack was fabricated." The silence that followed was devastating. Dr. Reeves, the board chairman, looked at Thorne with unconcealed disgust. "Mr. Thorne, you will remain here while we contact law enforcement. Dr. Reach, all charges against you are dismissed. Your license is fully reinstated effective immediately, with the board's formal apology for this proceeding." He turned to the rest of the board. "Furthermore, I'm recommending we implement mandatory abuse screening protocols for all euthanasia requests. What happened here, what Dr. Reach had the courage to stop, should never happen again." 2 police officers entered the room, moving toward Thorne with practiced efficiency. His attorneys were already gathering their materials, their expressions making clear they'd be withdrawing from his representation by day's end. Michael watched as Vernon Thorne, powerful, influential, untouchable Vernon Thorne, was read his rights and led from the room in handcuffs. The man who'd built an empire on cruelty and intimidation was finally being held accountable. Sharma squeezed Michael's good shoulder gently. "You did it. You saved him." Michael thought about Whisk, still in protective custody, waiting. "No," he said softly. "He saved me first." The fluorescent lights of the clinic were finally a welcome sight, not a stage for emotional detachment. 1 month had passed since the licensing board hearing, and the world Dr. Michael Reach inhabited was fundamentally different. Vernon Thorne's empire was collapsing, the news reporting on the ongoing criminal investigation into animal cruelty and tax fraud. Michael's veterinary license had been fully and formally reinstated, accompanied by a humbling apology from the board. He wasn't just Dr. Reach anymore. He was the vet who had fought the powerful Vernon Thorne and won. On a quiet Saturday morning, Michael signed the final adoption papers. The puppy, Whisk, was officially his. Whisk, no longer the trembling creature on a steel table, was a blur of playful black and tan, chasing a rubber toy across the sunlit floor of the recovery kennel. His small body, once covered in systematic bruises and scars, was healing, and the wary intelligence in his eyes had been replaced by a joyful, if still deeply loyal, trust. Watching the puppy, a beacon of innocence saved from the darkest corner of cruelty, Michael finally understood the profound truth Dr. Sharma had missed. He'd spent 3 years building a dam of professional indifference to protect himself from pain. But Whisk's desperate gesture, that single paw pressed into his palm, hadn't just been a plea for mercy. It had been a lifeline. Whisk hadn't just needed saving. He was the catalyst that had forced Michael to tear down that wall, shed his fear, and embrace the fierce compassion that defined him. He hadn't just saved a life, he had reclaimed his soul. The story of Dr. Michael Reach and Whisk serves as a powerful reminder that professional success is hollow without the courage to stand up for what is right. We saw how a single moment of connection, a small paw pressed into a palm, was enough to shatter years of indifference and expose a hidden world of cruelty. It reminds us that even when we feel numbed by the world, our empathy remains our greatest strength and our most vital tool for justice. If you believe that no victim is too small to fight for and that compassion should always triumph over power, please like this video to help us spread this message of hope. Share this story with others to remind them that one person's choice to do the right thing can dismantle an entire system of abuse. Finally, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story where the smallest voices find the justice they deserve.